Hi everyone, and welcome to this week's Crime and Punishment story. This week I am covering the strange case of William Pickering and the murder of William Wilkinson, which took place in South Shields in 1888. I hope you will find it interesting. William Pickering was born in South Shields in around 1872 to parents John and Mary. William's father had died when William was quite young, and his mother worked as a laundress. She also appeared to take in lodgers to no doubt help support her family. William worked at Crosslings in South Shields at the time the crime was committed and was only around 16 years old. William Wilkinson, the victim, was born in around 1871 in South Shields to parents John and Mary, and was one of at least 4 children, and he was around 17 years old at the time of his death. In 1888 he was working as an apprentice joiner, although his actual place of work was unknown. Before we go any further, can I just say, if you do enjoy this video, then please give it a thumbs up. And if you are new here or haven't already done so, then do please consider subscribing to the channel to help support the content we create. It really is very much appreciated. And it is completely free to subscribe. It doesn't cost you any money, but it really does help to support the channel. And as always, I just want to add that I do record these stories live, so I do sometimes make mistakes, which I always try to rectify. So I hope this does not spoil your enjoyment of the video. Now, due to the fact that both boys in this week's case are called William, I will refer to them by their surnames for the main part of the story, simply to avoid any confusion. On August 17th, 1888, William was in the butcher shop in South Shields when William Pickering came in carrying a bundle of old paper. Pickering asked the shop owner if he wanted to buy the paper from him, and the owner had been in the habit of doing this. However, he said he did not need any. Pickering then went over to the cupboard where the owner kept his paper and looked inside. Wilkinson suddenly pushed him into the cupboard and then punched him twice in the back. Pickering told him to stop it, and a few minutes later the two boys left the shop. Pickering returned to the shop around an hour later and asked again if the owner would buy the papers he had, and the owner again said no. Wilkinson suddenly appeared in the shop and again punched Pickering sharply in the back. Pickering was standing beside the butcher's bench at the time. He did not return the blow, but as he turned to face him, Wilkinson struck him again in the face. Pickering struck out at him, and Wilkinson cried out that he had been stabbed. With the help of another man, the owner of the butcher's shop carried William Wilkinson to his home, and a doctor and the police were sent for. Dr. Dalziel, one of several doctors who took care of Wilkinson, was the first to arrive. He knew there was little that could be done, but he treated and dressed the wound to Wilkinson's stomach, but sadly he died a few hours later. P.C. Barber, acting on information received, went to the home of William Wilkinson, where he was told that William Pickering was responsible for the attack. He went to his place of work and arrested him for wounding Wilkinson, and this was later changed to a charge of willful murder when William Wilkinson died. William Pickering at the time simply stated that he had done it, but that Wilkinson had struck him first. The inquest was held at the Mile End Hotel in South Shields before Coroner Graham on August the 20th. John Wilkinson of 4th Street in South Shields said he had identified the body as being that of his son William Wilkinson. He said William was an apprentice in the joinery trade and had turned 16 in October of 1887. Aaron Brown said he was a butcher with a shop in Morton Street in South Shields. He said he knew both boys well. He said on August the 17th at around 12 midday, Wilkinson was inside his shop when Pickering came in. He said Pickering often came to his shop with waste paper, which he would buy from him for a few pennies. He said this day Pickering had a bundle of paper with him, but when he asked if he would like to buy it, Aaron said he had plenty. He said he did not think that Pickering believed him, as he went to the other corner of the shop to look in the cupboard where he kept the paper. As he was doing so, he said Wilkinson gave him a dig in the back and Pickering fell into the cupboard. After this, he said Wilkinson struck him again twice with his fist. He said these were heavy blows and must have hurt Pickering. He said he heard Pickering say to Wilkinson, "If you hit me again, I will knock your head off." He said a woman came into the shop just after this and the two boys left. Aaron said around 1 p.m. Pickering returned to the shop. He still had the paper with him and asked again if he would buy it for 4p. Aaron said he told him again that he did not want it. He said Wilkinson then entered the shop and deliberately went up to Pickering and struck him in the back with his fist. He said Pickering did not hit him back, but he did turn to face him, and as he did so, Wilkinson appeared to be about to strike him again. He said Pickering said something to Wilkinson. He believed it was something like, "Do that again and I will put this into you." He thought now that Pickering was talking about the butcher's knife which had been on the bench beside him. He said Wilkinson, however, did strike Pickering a heavy blow in the face, and he then saw his hands go up in the air as if he was trying to defend himself, and he then cried out that Pickering had stabbed him. Aaron said Wilkinson lay down on the floor, but he tried again to get up and strike Pickering once more, but he was not able to do so. He said he went over to the boy and seeing he was badly injured, he helped him up, and with the help of another man, he carried him to his home. He said he passed Dr. Dalziel on the way and asked him to come to the house to treat Wilkinson. He said Pickering had not provoked Wilkinson in any way, and it was not clear why he had punched him, and he added that when Wilkinson first lay down in the shop after he'd been stabbed, Pickering did not seem to be aware of what he had done. And he ended by saying that the knife produced to the jury was his. It was one he kept in his shop for use in his work. I must add here that no evidence is given as to what William Pickering did after he had stabbed William Wilkinson, other than that what Aaron Brown had said, that he did not seem to be aware of what he had done. However, it does seem that he simply left the shop and went back to his own job. Charles Morris said he was a barman in South Shields. He said he had been in the butcher's shop on the day in question just after 1 p.m. He said he was outside just about to go in when he saw Wilkinson go inside. He said he was still outside when he heard Wilkinson cry out, "He's stabbed me." He said he went into the shop and saw Wilkinson clutching his stomach. He also saw Pickering standing by the bench. He did not see a knife in his hand. He said he asked Pickering, "What have you done?" and he replied, "Well, he had no business to hit me." Charles said he saw the knife on the bench and when he picked it up it was wet with blood. He said he put the knife back down and went to look for a policeman. William Young said he was 14 years old and he lived in South Shields and worked as an errand boy for Mr. Brown the butcher. He said he had gone into the shop on the 17th just after 1 p.m. He saw the two boys inside and he also saw Mr. Brown. He said he had seen the earlier incident when Wilkinson had pushed Pickering into the cupboard and punched him, but he did not see the later fight at 1 p.m. He said when he had gone into the shop, Wilkinson had already been stabbed, and he said he had helped Mr. Brown to carry Wilkinson to his home. William Young said when he returned to the shop, he noticed the knife on the bench with blood on it. He did not think, he simply picked it up, wiped it with a cloth, and put it away. He said he later saw Mr. Brown take the knife, but he did not know what had happened to it after that. P.C. Barber said he had been at his home in Fort Street, and Fort Street, for anybody who's interested, is exactly where you would imagine it to be in South Shields. It is next to the Roman fort. And P.C. Barber said he had been told of the incident in the butcher's shop. He had then gone to the home of William Wilkinson. Here he had been told of the fight between the two boys and that William Pickering had stabbed Wilkinson. P.C. Barber said he then went to a shop in King Street in South Shields, to the place where Pickering worked. He took him into custody and charged him with stabbing Wilkinson. He said he replied saying, "Yes, I did it, but he struck me first." He said he took Pickering to the police station and then went to the butcher's shop where he got the knife off Aaron Brown. He said it was an ordinary butcher's knife, and the knife was then shown to the jury. He said he had later charged Pickering with the willful murder of Wilkinson, and to this he said he had not made any reply. Dr. Dalziel said he had met Aaron Brown on the afternoon of August the 17th when he had been carrying William Wilkinson to his home, and he had followed them there. He said when he arrived, Wilkinson was lying on a bed and he appeared to be in great pain. He said he had examined the boy and found the wound had pierced the bowel. He said with the assistance of Doctors Robinson, Crease and Sutherland, they had stitched and dressed the wound, and he had remained with William Wilkinson until his death at around 5:40 p.m. on the same afternoon. Dr. Sutherland said he had performed the post-mortem on the body of William Wilkinson. He said the boy was in general good health, and apart from the wound to the stomach, there were no other marks on his body. He said it was his professional opinion that William Wilkinson had died due to shock from the attack and blood loss from the wound. Superintendent Moorhouse said he wished to read the statement that had been taken from William Wilkinson before his death. However, the defence, who would be acting for William Pickering if he went to trial, objected to it being read to the jury. A brief consultation took place and the statement was deemed to be illegal and was not read, although no explanation was given as to why this was the case. There are no details of the summing up of the coroner. However, I think we can assume that he would have asked the jury to consider if this had been a case of provocation, and the prisoner then lashing out in self-defence, believing that he was to be attacked a second time. The jury retired for quite some time before returning a verdict of manslaughter against William Pickering, and he was committed for trial. I did not find any details of a funeral for William Wilkinson, and although this is unusual, as normally funerals of young victims of crime were covered in most of the local newspapers, but it is possible that the family wished to keep the details private. I did not find any evidence of a headstone for William anywhere in the area. The trial took place at Durham in November of 1888. Sadly again, the judge presiding over the case was not named. William Pickering pleaded guilty to the charge, stating that during an argument on August the 17th he had stabbed William Wilkinson with a butcher's knife. And it would seem that William had entered the guilty plea the previous night, and the judge had requested information from his employers as to whether or not they would employ him again after he'd been to prison before he passed sentence. And a letter had been received from Crosland and Company of King Street in South Shields, in which they stated they would be more than happy to employ William Pickering again, and they added that they had always found him to be quiet, inoffensive and trustworthy. The judge then sentenced William Pickering to 6 months penal servitude with hard labour, adding that his youthfulness and the fact that his employers were willing to take him back had meant he had chosen this sentence, as otherwise he would have been sent to prison for a much longer term. I do not know which prison William was sent to serve his sentence, but even as a boy he would have found hard labour a tough punishment. On his release, he returned to South Shields, and in 1893 he joined the Royal Engineers. In 1904 he died at sea at the age of around 31 years, and the details state that he died from consumption and heart disease. This truly was a most bizarre case, and I know that I often say this, but this time I can find no reason at all for why William Wilkinson attacked William Pickering when the two boys were in the butcher's shop. There simply seems to be no logical explanation for the attack. Sadly, as the statement by William Wilkinson was never heard, we have no idea what his side of the story was. Perhaps if we had heard that, we might know why he went into the shop and attacked William Pickering. And also because Pickering pleaded guilty, he never gave any evidence either, so that still leaves us with no idea if the two boys had fallen out previously, and if this was simply a case of the argument continuing later in the day. Was the judge right to sentence William Pickering to just 6 months in prison? Well, it doesn't seem very much for taking the life of the other boy, but I would assume, based on the evidence given, he had been provoked, and also that he did not seem to really be aware that he had stabbed Wilkinson. This may have made the judge view the case in a much more sympathetic light. I, however, am still not entirely sure if 6 months was enough. But what do you think? Do you think the two boys had clearly fallen out prior to them being in the butcher's shop? Do you think William Pickering had perhaps attacked William Wilkinson earlier and he was simply seeking revenge? Or do you think William Wilkinson simply acted in a moment of sheer madness when he attacked Pickering? In fact, can you actually think of any logical reason why the fight took place? And finally, do you think the sentence of 6 months was enough? Or do you think William Pickering should have been sent to prison for longer? Do please let me know your thoughts in the comments below. I do hope that you had found this very strange, sad and tragic story interesting, and I do thank you all very much for watching, and I do hope to see you all again next week.